Yeah, it's good that you've got a couple of guys in real life. I mean, that was my kind of thing. I got frustrated where there was absolutely nobody in my real life that I could talk to.
Yeah.
The moment I started to scratch beneath the surface, the eyebrows would be raised.
Mm.
And so, yeah, I basically needed to, as I think Marcus Aurelius said, create your teachers.
Yeah. 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 Have you got any? Well, I suppose not. They probably wouldn't identify with it if they don't know what it is. But do you have guys sort of that think along the same lines as you?
I have one or two friends from high school that I talk to every now and then,
Mm-hmm.
especially one that we have really good conversations, but he's the kind of guy that's interested in it, but only to a very surface level degree where I can talk to him, but he's kind of
Yeah.
like a freshly red pilled guy,
Right.
and
Right.
he doesn't move beyond it because he's got a good family. You know, he's
Mm.
got children, he's got a good wife, he's got, he's more pissed off about the system and his job and how he's used as a man. And
Right.
so we talk on that level, but he doesn't sort of explore all of it, which I can see why, because he's got a good family. So
Mm.
there's kind of limits to sort of how real you want to be to yourself, because then you start to confront what you're prepared to lose or get rid of.
Yeah.
So he's about the only one, but
Right.
most of them, he's a good friend, probably my closest friend. I can't actually talk to about this stuff, which you'd probably think, how is he your close friend, human? But we've been close since, early school days. And
Right.
he's just always been that kind of guy where he doesn't care. He's sort of, she'll be right kind of attitude.
Yeah.
Just no interest, doesn't read, not into literature. He's just not
Yeah.
wired that way. But I appreciate his simplicity. And like, I've learned a lot from him in terms of, stopping the hamster wheel in your head, in terms of, not to worry about. Sometimes, when you observe people that you think, oh, if they only knew, and then you actually observe their lives and you go, you know what? They're not as neurotic as I am when it comes to this thing. Good on them.
Yeah. Yeah.
I need some of that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's true. It's like, it's your reflection of the people around you, and I suppose as your belief shift during life, it's all completely based on where you are in life. That's going to change. It's going to change who you associate with. It's going to be based on your, I guess, current aspirations, your knowledge at the time, and all of that. It's going to be relative. And so it's true. You are the painting, but you're also the painter. So you make your own life. And like you say, your mate gets pissed off about being a tool for other people. That's what men get fed, as kids. And, your Gen X, that all started during your generation. I mean, as boys, we got put in the corner and got fed all the poor messages that they're perverts and scumbags and deadbeats and all the rest of it, that we're the problem. And you got that through every avenue of society, through the media, through the education system, and so on. But all that was, essentially, when you look back on it, you can see that was all designed to just keep you in line, keep you as a cog, to just keep the machine going.
One powerlessness part of it, which just sort of clicked in my head after listening to your recent video that you put on Stardust channel, which I'll link below, is
Sure.
how men are still expected to be leaders, and that men want to be leaders, but you're expected to be a leader, but you can't lead.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
you hate it. And the first thing I thought of was, well, I knew for a long time why it was so hard for me, say, for instance, it was hard to love women, was that because I couldn't respect them. I can't actually love anything I can't respect. So if you come back from war, or, your woman's betrayed you, or your country's betrayed you, you can't love them, first of all. You can't lead them because you don't respect them. And typically what you lead, you tend to have a position of, you trust those people you lead. You've got your second in charge and so forth, so on and so forth. So there's a hierarchy. So when none of that's there and can't be trusted, if you turn your back and you're trying to lead, but the person you're ostensibly trying to lead, you don't know if they're going to stab you in the back, then you don't lead, because a leader tends to imply they've got some intelligence about them. So they're not going to turn their back and start leading someone who's got a knife at them.
That's right. And it's like I said in that video, all the messages and all the mentors that I've had that have come into my life at critical points, it always came back to the same message. One was forgiveness, but the other strong message was you have to move away from the feminine and move towards the masculine. That was always the message. Now, all these negative messages that we got, it's fed into a narrative that people believe now. But if you went out there, and I'm getting this question far more often from females now than I ever have before. In the last year, I can count about 10 women that have asked me this question. And it's because they open up with me like men open up to me as well. I have that kind of background, so they feel safe to open up to me. But women especially asking me the question, what is masculinity? They don't know. They don't know how to define it. And it's almost like they're pining or longing for something that they can't readily identify, but they know that's lacking.
Is this women? You're saying asking this?
Women.
I find even men.
Today, it's all over.
If women are asking it, imagine in today's confusion what men must be thinking. Because when you utter the word masculinity today, it's not just that it's been shamed for a couple of generations. If you try and talk about it, a male's first reaction is to kind of be embarrassed, as though they're uttering a kind of a very shameful. It's almost clownish, the word, to even utter it, as though you're talking about Santa Claus or something. They can't actually frame what it means.
Yes,
it's like a child playing with superhero toys. Oh, he's talking about masculinity. Go Junior, tell me what masculinity is. So like men can't even define what it is. I noticed when I talked about it in a couple of recent videos late last year, the way I was trying to express it, a lot of guys I could tell in the comment section resonate to some degree, but they still don't know what it means and how it's framed in terms of their footing in life, and how they sort of take steps forward and how they balance themselves. Like, their equilibrium as men in regards to masculinity, they have none. They keep toppling over. They find it clownish. They're embarrassed of it. They turn away from it. They can't define it. And they're almost looking at women to tell me what kind of man should I be? But like you said, women are asking, what the hell is masculinity? Where have all the good men gone? Like, I don't know what it is. There is something missing from the world and no one knows the answer.
Yeah, exactly. I'll be sitting across from these women and they're going, oh, well, men are toxic and this and they're harmful and blah, blah, blah. And I can show you the stats. And I was like, fucking calm down. All the rest of it, I said, I have to pull them back and bring them back to reality and show that they're accountable for the failures in their relationships and all the rest. And they do take it on board eventually. But the way that I see masculinity, it's strength, it's leadership, it's living with purpose, it's autonomy, it's self-generated. We've talked about that before. But the thing is, in today's society, especially, masculinity needs to be valued and it needs to be appreciated. Otherwise, you're playing with fire. It's that old adage. I think it's an African proverb. It's, the boy who's not embraced by the village will burn it down to feel its warmth. And there's 101 ways to burn down a village. Sometimes all a boy has to do is nothing.
Just not live his life to his not even fullest potential, but not even like halfway or even try. You mentioned something in your video about when you put a animal in a cage, you domesticate it. And so there's no point now. Like, I think I've talked to Stardust about this as well. It's in terms of like previous generations compared to ours. They've got this idea of what freedom is. If you tell a domesticated cage guy, you open the door and say, you're free now. And a lot of guys, they talk this way within the manosphere. It's like, I'm free now. I don't have to do anything. I don't have to deal with life. I don't have to even look in a woman's direction. I don't have to engage in any tactile sense. Yeah. But it's kind of like, but if you're not actually moving outside of the cage door. Yeah. In any real sense. I mean, that's what I see. I mean, a lot of guys will fight me on that and saying, well, my life's a lot better. But I also don't see much introspective, not questioning, but in people's language, and I think you've touched on this in your video, and just simply the way you talk. Sure. Which is like a reason why I encourage like more guys to sort of be expressing themselves like you've done on your video and I try to do, and because there's very few of us. Yeah. The rest of the guys are saying, I don't have to do anything. no, 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 leave me alone.
Yeah, very much. Very much. And it's like some of your videos have been really great. Like the recent ones I've really liked, and they've inspired me as well. When you're talking about people being your own author and just write words and get it down. And it's often what I find with young guys that I've worked with. It's sort of the best thing you can do for a young guy is give him your time. Listen to him. Appreciate what he's stating to you. It's because in a lot of cases, it's the first time where he's ever had anybody do that for him with no strings attached. And it's kind of like a toddler. A toddler can't speak, but they want to interact with their environment. Everybody's talking and all the rest of it. So all that comes out is goo goo gaga. It's the same thing with a young guy. It's the first time he's ever put words. It's like you ask him a question. Who are you? What are your interests? Where do you want to be in 10 years? And all that's going to come out is a bunch of words that don't mean anything. And that's fine. But that's the first place, the first time where he can express himself freely. I never got that growing up. They didn't get that growing up. But the words don't have to make sense right off the bat. They will begin to. Just like you said, it's a process of getting that out of the system.
How do you, though, and I've asked a few guys this, and I haven't come up with any concrete answer. And I suppose, like most things, there are no answers, only choices. And it's to the degree that everyone's different. I understand that, but how do you get someone interested enough in wanting to be their own author, to be interested in developing the language and internalizing it and finding your own answers and being able to speak them, starting to form the words and be interested? I mean, in your video, you described how, you discovered that you were sneaking books home and reading poetry and literature. I was similar. I had my own little thing that I took into my room, and I was trying to explain the world in my own way, creatively, artistically, with stories and so forth.
Sure.
That was a natural impulse. What are the guy that's not built like you or I or some other guys that produce content?
If you don't look inward, then you just live life by default. You're not creating, you're following. That's where it goes. But a lot of the guys I work with, I tell them it's in simpler language. It's not about altering who you are, but it's about stripping away who you are not. So, there's consequences for these guys. Like, we sit these guys down, I put them in a room with guys that have done hard time and all the rest of it, and they'll lay it out for them. So, okay, well, this is the last stop. Okay, from here on, you go into a gang, you go into the prison population. Okay, this is what's going to happen to you. This is going to be, the actual end result. And it's nothing like what they thought. Sometimes you're going to get guys that got relatives in the gang, whatever, they know the life. They're fine. You don't have to worry about them. But it's not done in a confrontational way. It isn't scared straight. You're just giving them the truth. You're saying this is going to be the end result. This is how you're going to be utilized. And, I know guys. Like, I was talking to a guy, it was a couple of months ago, and he's a high-ranking gang member. And you'd never pick it by looking at the guy. He's university educated, all the rest of it. He could talk on a variety of topics. It could be politics, social nuance, all the rest of it. He understands things. And we were talking about masculinity and boxing and all the rest of it. He takes a bit of a shine to me, and all the rest of it, he likes me. But he says things. He's dark skinned, right? But he'll say things to people that make their jaws drop. He'll say racism doesn't exist. Now, this was a guy that used to recruit new recruits, and what he said racism is, and you don't have to agree with him on this, whatever, it's up to the individual, but what he said was all racism is hatred from self. Then you take that hatred and your self-loathing and you push it out onto everyone else around you. Because if you're hurting, everybody else has to hurt. And he said, and then there's a guy like me that comes along, he sees a boy from a broken family, and just like a junkie, he's going to feed him whatever he wants to hear. He's going to tell him it's because somebody of this race is keeping you down. He's going to give that kick up the arse to him. He said, that boy will be happy to do anything for me. He'll be proud to go inside, carry, conceal, whatever, robbery, blah, blah, blah. All the rest of him, that's a life. And he openly admits this. But we've got so many broken boys. Gang membership has jumped. It's skyrocketed in the past 10 years. It's out of control. I mean, there's statistics we talk about, the marriage stats and all the divorce stats, but 30 to 40% of all births now come from single mothers. In minority communities, it's anywhere from 70 to 75%. Broken boys.
It's not shocking to me, though, when you say that gangs have increased and gang culture has, because I'm thinking, where is there any avenue for masculinity to express itself? other than the most base Neanderthal fashion, which is kind of gangs and sort of the priapic, violent kind. There's very little intellect.
You look at where we are right now, and you're as reflective as I am. We try and look back on our lives and understand what we missed out on, what was lacking and all the rest of it. And, myself and a lot of guys growing up, it could only really reflect on that later on in life, because you couldn't identify it. Things like feeling safe, or that it was okay to feel, show feelings that were outside of that culture that I was in. And, it's okay to feel like an equal to others, that I wasn't always lower, that there's no reason to hide, that it's okay to feel confident in who you are and that you deserve respect. All these little key things. Things like, women, that women were there for more than sex. That was a revelation to me. I didn't understand that there could be more to that. I didn't learn about that until I went traveling years later when I was around all these people going backpacking from, Germany and Switzerland and all the rest of it. And is this actually how people interact? Is this how men and women? This is a completely different language to me. I was like a bull in a china shop. And so I couldn't really find the common ground. But what I've found within that dynamic is I didn't have to go out there and start throwing punches. I didn't have to threaten people or puff my chest out and the rest of it. I could have the freedom to sit there and just be. I could be happy. I could be sad, whatever. It doesn't matter. I didn't have to be tough. So a lot of guys, when they're growing up today, there is, a lot of gaps there. But what I missed out on was understanding what healthy relationships were. I didn't feel protected. I didn't feel valued. It's like a lot of men today, and knowing that the world wasn't always unsafe. But all these guys growing up today, I see videos online. I was watching one the other day. I don't know who the content maker was, but he's staring into the camera, and it's the same look in his eyes. He's saying that it's over. And this guy, 2 minutes into the video, starts hitting himself. And
really?
And it's one of those black pill vids or whatever. But this guy, the look in his eye, I've seen it so many times. There's a longing there. There's a sadness there. And it's like he's staring out into the abyss and he doesn't know what he's missing. And it's when you're trying to tear away from the feminine and move towards the masculine, that's what it's about. We put boys into a corner. We beat them every day, beat them with a stick, beat them over the head. And then we have the audacity to say to them, figure it out for yourself. Figure out what masculinity is. While we tell you that every aspect of masculinity is toxic and harmful and hurtful, and you're less than.
Yeah. I visualize men these days when we sort of reference the metaphor of a cage. I keep thinking that men are these caged racehorses that are beaten all the time, that will never know a racetrack in their lives. It's just a frustrating thing when you sort of see men like that. That are frustrated. They're like a pressure cooker. They're just sort of all this pent up whatever that they can't even, as we said, like put words to. They're not interested. They don't know the meaning of being interested in anything intellectually because they haven't been raised by that. They haven't been most of them haven't been raised with fathers in the home.
Yeah.
If they have, the father just shut up because he better not say anything. He may as well not be in the home, which sometimes is even worse because you see an invisible father that's actually there in body, but not there in spirit because he doesn't want to lose his family. He knows the power his wife has over him. It was the same with me as well. Like I wasn't mentored, really by my father, even though he was there. He was a quiet and a passive father in terms of masculinity.
Yeah.
And a lot of guys don't even have a father. And if they don't, you'll have the mother just telling the boy how bad men are. And he just sort of knows, well, I'm a male as well, so I must be bad too. And she's always complaining about the thing that I am and how it expresses itself. Like I just think about it, I fumbled myself around finding my own answers. And it's only because I had intellectual or artistic interest to sort of go in my room and I found them enjoyable to put two and two together, like figuring out a puzzle. But not everyone's wired that way.
Yeah. And it's, look, a lot of men today, they subsist. It's a lot of young men today, they, you can see this with the herbivore men, but you can also see it with Western males. They look at their fathers before them and they say that they don't want to be like him. They don't want to be a tool. for the system. They don't want to be salarymen. But their lives have become just as deprived, but just in a different way. And like everybody, they stick to what's familiar. A lot of it is just not seeing them worth in themselves, so they don't feel worthy of or know their own value or how to sell themselves. They lack skills and experiences, which is a big one, to actually negotiate their value and the boundaries. Not only can they not see the value, they can't identify the carrot. So it's a large part of it. Now, I think with boys, and especially with me, boys develop into men when men guide them and model masculinity.
Yeah.
And today, with each generation, each passing successive generation, we've done this to boys since probably the 80s, 90s. Boys are moving away from the connection to masculinity, to community, to family. All these men, they're just left to puzzle at manhood all alone. And what we're getting is just record levels of failure and disengagement from boys. And what boys don't need, or young men don't need, they don't need more discipline. They don't need more shaming. They don't beaten over the head. They need to be listened to. They need to be valued, accepted for who they are. They need role models. They need direction. They, show them how to live a healthy lifestyle. All the fundamental basics. Even the guys that I work with, how to pay a phone bill, because all these little things are just triggers that increase their chance of reoffending all over again. So you got to start from you identify where the gaps are. That's first, and identify the risk is that's second. But show them that they've got to be accountable for their actions. That's a big. All it is just reinforcing those behaviors and all the rest of it, and you empower them in the process. But these guys have got it, but for the average guy out there, they're just left on their own devices, man. This is Gen X. They were plumped in front of a TV set. Now you've got these guys absolutely lost in cyberspace, pornography, that man. We've done a number on these boys, and we've failed them. We really have. As a collective, we've failed them.
Yeah, and the world is so complex. Like I said, you've got a million choices which completely debilitate you. You and I grew up more in a world that was very simple. And so it was in some ways easier with less choices to try something and realize it didn't work. Whereas when there's a million things and they keep changing in terms of musical chairs, like the thing you thought you chose or you tried last week has changed and been rebranded. And so you keep retrying things that probably don't work again and again, but they look like they're new things. Whereas with us, it was kind of like you find sport, you find boxing, you find literature, you find art. They were very solid islands. They weren't vague. There's so many vague cross-connected points, things that are related to each other, messages that change, rules that change. People don't count on anything. So then how can you count on yourself? If you can't even count on what society's telling you, like saying, okay, we determined that A is now considered a mental disorder. And then tomorrow it's like, no, A is now completely fine. It's like, fuck, how am I supposed to calibrate my life in any meaningful long-term sense where you keep changing the rules all the time? Like yesterday I could love you. Now I can't. Yesterday I could invest in this mutual fund and now it's gone bust. Yesterday I had, like, I could have faith as a man, even say in terms of your thinking, not even structurally, say with a woman or a job or a career. Everything's ending before you can actually build anything long term, which is the domain of a man's mind. It's kind of why men find chess so interesting. That long, complex game where we can take pride in building something and strategizing. But, you move the first pawn and then the game is over and you have to start again. It's like, I don't want to play anymore. This is stupid. Yeah.
Yeah. The goalposts keep shifting. It's like what Norman Mailer said. I always liked Mailer. I always liked him. But he said every moment of one's life is just growing into more or retreating into less. So you're always living a little more, dying a little bit more, So, I can understand that.
Yeah, it's the whole Thomas Sowell, life is full of trade-offs.
But, I mean, you can look at, there are things that can encapsulate the male experience today, and one of them could be pornography. Right? It's now you've got mental health professionals argue up and down that it's not harmful, or it's not addictive, and it doesn't merge the pathways of the brain and all the rest of it. It doesn't cause it. Well, why is porn free? You know, come on, nothing else is. Fuck. I mean, can't tell me it does. It's not there for a reason. But it's, and this got laid out to me by someone that, I'm quite close to and I respect as well. He was saying with pornography, he's saying it's young men are becoming subject to what they resent, to what they hate. And in turn, they're becoming attracted to what they resent and what they hate. And as a result, young men, they've lost track of who they were and who they need to be. As a result, they've been cut off from the masculine, cut right off from the masculine. And what they're really yearning for is the love of the father. But they think they're yearning for the love of a woman because they're so tied to the feminine. So they're trying to get back what they've lost, but it's really being manifested as hatred for the woman because they're trying to get something that woman can't give, which is love. And sex is not love. Porn is not love. It's like the long, cold night of the soul. It's grief, it's loss, it's all these significant gaps where male mentorship and guidance should be. And women are only going to bring misery if men are looking at them to fill those gaps. And there's so many women I know that, and the guys that they go with don't have backgrounds of childhood abuse or all the rest of it, but they're saying these guys are broken. It's guys in their 20s and 30s, and they're saying, what the fuck is wrong with this guy? And it's the first relationship they've been in where they feel comfortable they can unload all this stuff. They don't have the words. They don't know how to negotiate the boundaries. Or it just comes out, blah. It's the first time someone's given them time of day. Yeah, man, it's pretty fucked up.
Oh, yeah, and whether it's society or a particular woman they're with, the first person they feel they can trust, aside from their mother, because that's the real thing. If you can actually consciously come to terms with severing that figurative umbilical cord with your mother and realize that no other woman in your existence is ever going to occupy the space of a mother in terms of how you're valued. That goes a long way. But the first time a guy, whether it's in society or with women, they hear in society in general, like open up, men need to cry, men should be expressive, they don't need to hold anything back. But it's almost like a sinister trap. Like it's, okay, I will because I trust you. The moment you do, as you said, you're kicked in the head. So it's kind of like they're the things I think that frustrate men. And I can really sympathize with it because it's like they're being trusting. The world says do X and we'll love you and accept you and understand you for once and hold you close. And men go, okay, I will because I'm listening to you. I care. I want to care about you. I'll do it first. I'll express myself. I'll be vulnerable. So men take the first step with the promise of we'll love you for it. And it's almost like, ha ha, fool, you fell for it. And it's like, how many times does that need to happen before it's always your fault? Like, it's really a hard message to get across unless the guy actually feels some sort of yearning for the truth. Either goes through a trauma where the only way out is something that you say to him, or he reads a quote from Hemingway, or he watches, I don't know, The Matrix or some movie that really, speaks to him like a religious moment. They're about the only ways. But my kind of thing is how you can't make it a one-size-fits-all thing. It's a time and place thing.
Yeah. And most people don't change until pain forces them to. It's most people are just dumb apes, just running on base instinct. I think that's even more prevalent today. People react instinctively, but so it's like consumer behavior. Somebody buys something, people buy emotionally, and then they try to justify logically. In their head, they're trying to make it, you didn't sell me anything. No, I bought that because of, it's not because it's a pretty package. It's because it means this to me, and they're trying to justify logically.
It's the same way they try and justify porn. I kind of talk to many guys where I'll say, porn has a deleterious effect on you. Your intelligence, your will, your drive, not just sexual, but just everything. It depletes you. It actually doesn't fill you up. Even the act of it, like you can actually physically feel it's an emptying of you. Yeah. And guys will defend and say, no, you're wrong, human, because when I rub one out, then I feel clear. I can get on with my day. And it's like, oh, okay.
That's never happened to me. I've never had post-nut. I'm sitting there and I'm going, even when I'm with her, during it, I'm just going, what the fuck? Why am I here with you? I'm not enjoying your presence, your company, your body. No, it's gotten that bad.
Yeah, yeah. I was laughing when you, not laughing, but actually, my eyebrows raised when I was listening to your last video where you said, you've actually never been in a real relationship as far as you know.
No, I haven't.
Can you explain your thoughts around that?
Yeah, I mean, where I came from, it was just sort of a pickup thing, and not like RSD pickup PUA stuff. It was just the society I came in, like, there were a lot of bad nuts and all the rest of it. So you'd get with a woman, blah blah blah. She's got tattoos all over her, and she comes from this family. I know this family. They know me. It's all the rest of it. It's like milk into water. This is what you do. You know, you're going with Nancy now. No, you're going with Cindy. It's blah blah blah. But yeah, it's like almost going like to the toilet. You're just getting that out of your system, and it is pretty brutal, but it's true. But not only that, like, you're doing it, but it's like you've got to do it with Nancy to prove to everybody else around you that you're a man, that you're fitting in, that you're conforming, that you're going through the motions. You can still get it up. You're following the narrative. You know, as you're not stepping outside of that. A woman just filled that gap, and they knew what their role was. But when I hear that as well, I'm really suspicious these days, especially the way the world is and how gynocentric it is. Whenever I hear men really posturing that kind of overly macho, priapic stance of like, oh, have you hooked up recently? How long has it been since you had sex? I keep thinking that is the female speaking through a man. Yeah.
It doesn't actually seem like a man that's self-possessed. And I hear it in TV shows. I heard it recently where I think it was a sitcom where the woman was lamenting. It was a young woman. It was one of these stupid comedy things that I caught 5 minutes of. And she was joking to her friend and said, "Oh my God, it's been 3 months since I had sex." And the other girl said, "Oh my God, what's going on?" As though, I know with a woman, sex is easy, so that's probably a long time. And it speaks to sort of her promiscuity. But I wonder always those messages about how macho you are in terms of how consistently you have frequent sex. It's really playing into the hands of women.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. That's how women control.
Yeah.
You know, if they can't put their character, then control you sexually, they can't have any control of you in the future. So, and that's as much about conformity. They're always watching men, always testing men. And that would have gone right back to trouble times, but we're so sort of, you know, isolated now, so you don't see so much of it. I guess it's not as clear. But you go with a girl from Eastern Europe. So I've spent a lot of time over there, and because the English is so poor, they'll just come out and say it. So it's, you know, okay, that's how you think. But yeah, it's essentially what it is.
Yeah, and I just thought that, say if you're a very base male that hasn't developed this language we were speaking about, like you haven't actually internalized, you haven't, you know, grown this sort of garden of thought inside you. It's essentially empty. There's no sunlight coming in, so nothing's grown. So you haven't got the language to express what, you know, if you've grown anything inside you. So the only thing that's there is the base aspect of sex. And so if you go out there and you go, okay, well, this is the only language I know, sex and feeling good, and I feel warm and safe in a woman's, you know, with a woman's head on my chest, and the world is good. But if there's nothing else there, like you've mentioned, and I can sort of relate to this too, like and it comes with age, I suppose too. But when you've got more in there other than sex and erection, then you go, whatever interactions you're engaged in, even if a woman's not there, you look at the world and you think, oh, this is interesting. A connects to B. I find that interesting. Oh, I want to write about this. You ponder life in different aspects. And then when you're in front of a woman, that same sort of philosophical mind presents itself. It's like, it's not only just what's between your legs. It's like, what's coming out of your mouth? What do you believe in? What are your values? Do you actually even have any values? So when the very one-trick pony of your hot sex babies, when that's not the only thing there, when it's more elegant, when it's multi-layered, and you've got a hierarchy of what's important, and you've sort of thought about it, and, you know, that becoming the writer starts to fill this book up with quotes and standards and importance. And, you know, when you're in front of someone like a woman, and it's kind of like, hang on a minute, like the sex bit is the first line of this novel. It's like, if that's all that's in this book, and you're wanting this book to be my life with you, you know, I want a novel. I don't want the first line of a first page. If that's all you've got, like that sort of the writer's mind, the author's mind, the novelist's mind, the guy that's interested in thought and developing some ethics and values, that's where it can really help guys. But if all you've got is erection and sex and there's nothing written in your book, then I can understand why guys really fall into that bear trap.
Yeah. Yeah, and what I've always found is, and I've learned this through trial and error, is being with women is the amount of expectations that men place on women or have of women are just unreasonable. I'm not talking about accountability. Women, if anything, need to be a hell of a lot more accountable than they are right now. So there's not an issue of that. It's just men look for too much in women. I've always seen they can complement a certain part of my life. But, I've spent time with women that are far more intelligent than I am, in their own way. I mean, a woman, it's a different kind of intelligence. I think women they reach a certain level of, I guess, emotional maturity and social maturity around the age of 16. I don't think they evolve past that. It doesn't matter how many degrees they have underneath their belt. It's just what it is. And all of the rest is just instinctive. So you're always being watched. You're always being shit tested. And she's always going to judge you on that. But those sort of traditional relationships and all the rest of it have gone the way of the dodo bird. They don't exist anymore. Maybe that was just a brief period in time. That's whole sort of golden era. But if you look back at sort of agrarian times and all the rest of it, they complemented each other in terms of the work they did around the house, on the farm, all the rest of it. Her job was to raise kids. That's that traditional sort of relationship. Do I want that? No. Do I want to have kids with a woman? No. Do I want to live with one? No. It's gone to that stage. I never had that inclination. But, I want to be valued by the woman I'm with. I want to be appreciated. I want to be heard. All the rest of it. But there's so much bullshit in their head right now. And it's all driven by that instinctive instinct.
Yeah, I'm of a similar bent. I realise the limits of the average woman. I'm not looking for an Ewalt, but I also, if I am to feel anything that's meaningful, I'm not going to try and fool myself into thinking it's something else. Like you said, I want to be valued, I want to be respected, I want to be heard, and I'm a person in and of myself because I respect other people too. When I'm with them, I want to listen to their conversation. I want to engage. They have their own thoughts. But I can't pretend when she's treating me like shit and she's so solipsistic that I might as well not be there. I'm just kind of, insert boyfriend here. Then I can't actually value that relationship because I know what it is and what it is not. So for good or bad, I enjoy, the limits of ways that I can interact with women or particular women. And when there's nothing there, there's no nutrition, then I'm not with them anymore. But I need meaning. I need reality. But also some of the guys that kind of like, well, then don't deal with women. It's like a binary, either or. But they fail to see that there's grey areas in life. And, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying, jump off a cliff and get married to a woman. I'm saying, walk down steep hills. Not jump off a cliff. Be a little bit more courageous. Ask for what you want.
Yes.
As though they never thought of it. Just ask for what you want. Say no to a woman politely. But in their mind, just even saying something politely seems like they're hitting a woman over the head with a sledgehammer. It's like, why are you like that? You and someone else in front of you, there's two people in a relationship. Why do you keep thinking there's one?
It's like I said in the latest video, Paul Proteus, I watched his video recently. I thought it was great. It really was. He was talking about he went to a party and this woman was bothering him and she just didn't get the message. But he said if you don't want the job, don't do the interview. But he's saying, it's so straightforward. You're like, you know what? You're right. You're absolutely right. Why am I here? And he's saying, but men have lost their ability to say no. It's basic common sense, but it's, for a lot of guys, including myself, it's like you reflect back on these things to say, that guy's got a point. And you can meet someone like that in your life. And I've met guys during my life like that. Never got it from women, always got it from the men. They'd say simple things and it would just like light bulb goes off. You're right. That makes sense. Why am I doing something if I don't like it?
Yeah, I think it's because, especially in the presence of most women, men are almost completely on autopilot. It feels so good and so much like sleep. You know, you feel almost anesthetized. You can't actually point to anything bad in that moment, that situation where you're floating above ground and just enjoying space with a woman. You know, you're not thinking of, female nature and the laws and domestic violence and stuff. That only kind of comes in, I notice with me, when she says something that goes counter to what I know, like a little red light goes off. But when I'm actually in the presence of someone whose company I like, it's just all good. You know, you're not going to be a pessimist and just always have that magnifying glass of like, fuck you, everything you say. I'm going to disbelieve and I'm going to be anti everything you say. That's no way to live your life, let alone be in the company of someone that you actually want to enjoy.
Yeah. Yeah. There's so many times I'll be with women now, I'm playing counselor with them. It's just, look, leave all the bullshit behind. You're not thinking for yourself. You've been fed a lot of bullshit. And you break it down for them systematically in very simple terms. And it's like, yeah, you want. And then they want to sleep with me because I stood up to them. I said, for fuck's sake, what is wrong with your psychology?
Yeah.
And it's all twisted. And you can look at the situation today with a lot of young men. I'm not going to debate the statistics with them. They can break it down to the nth degree. These guys are pretty sharp. But, this whole, the term incel, voluntarily celibate, all the rest of it. You say to people, well, the Vikings were incels. You can break that down. It's what's termed the operational sex ratio. The elites in the Viking community, they engaged in concubinage, polygamy, all the rest of it. So all these men that were in that tribe, because all raiding and looting and all pillaging overseas and everything was taking off. So they said, okay, I want to be a part of this in order to raise my sexual status within the tribe. So that's how it took off. It's the only way they could do it. But people seem, sort of taken a bit aback that Vikings were incels. This isn't new. The technology is new that's making this happen. And I know so many women that are just sitting on the sidelines. They want Mr. Right, even though they've got 5 kids, even though they hate themselves more and more every year. And they learn nothing. I always say that your last mistake is your best teacher. What do they learn? Nothing. It's men's fault. Everything's men's fault. Because that's what they've been taught. They don't know anything else. They've never looked to a man for inspiration. They've never benefited from a man's input. Kids today, the majority just grow up in the mother's embrace. It's men are absent from the family. How many kids grow up with, even if they have a father, how many other male role models?
Huh.
None. There's nothing. It's bare. Yeah. And then again, most guys are growing up with nobody. 80+% of the prison population come from single mother families. This is well known.
Yeah, I sometimes think, the notion of Nawalt, when it's applied to males being mentored, that's really a Nawalt. That's like Bigfoot. Like fuck trying to find a woman that's a standout. Try and find a male voice that's a standout that can actually impart some wisdom and give some mentorship and give you some clarity in life. That to me is the Bigfoot most men should be looking for, not women. It's almost like they've replaced it. Like there's no answers. Women seem like the only compass that I should aim for, the only adventure, the only Bible that'll explain things to me.
Yeah. And it's the most reliable predictor we have for a boy failing in life. Whether he fail in school, whether he fail in college. He doesn't have a father or a male mentor. Okay, well, he's going to, even if he gets into college, his score is going to be lower than anybody else. He's 16 times more likely to go to prison. He's 5 times more likely to kill himself. You look at guys under the age of 25, that's especially prevalent. You're twice as likely to abuse alcohol. It goes on and on and on, even being diagnosed with these different mental disorders. It's with each generation, it just gets worse and worse.
Well, one thing I like, if I may interject, when you sort of when I mentioned before that you said you've never been in a relationship, and then is it you've never been in a relationship, or also that you never think you've really been in love?
Yeah, both. I've never loved a woman.
Yeah. Well, when you said your kryptonite is women with tattoos on her neck, I said, well, that explains why you've never been in love.
That's too true. I can't argue with that.
Is that because it made me think of a video I made last year, where I know for myself in my 30s, I explicitly picked the wrong woman so I would never fall in love.
Yeah, exactly.
So I picked the wrong kind of woman because it was safe. I knew it would end. So I wonder if you ever caught yourself and knew what you were doing in that respect.
Yeah. We always go with what's familiar, even if we know, and even subconsciously that it's bad for us because it's familiar. Yeah, these those kinds of women are drawn to me. I don't get anywhere with 9-to-5 women.
But did you but were you aware that not just that it was familiar, but that it was safe and you wouldn't get hurt because it wasn't going to go anywhere, because it would end the same way?
Yeah, exactly. That was part of it. I was also going with what I knew, because you go into any kind of, I guess, social environment or anything like that. It's like, this is easy. I understand the language here. I understand how to interact with this person. That way I don't have to go outside of this bubble of comfort. I can stay comfortable by interacting with this person. I know what the language is. I know how to get what I want and then just move on without any kind of, commitment.
Yeah. I'm an expert in this environment. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's not necessarily the best thing for us.
No. It sort of reminds me a lot of guys stuck in the same sort of rhetoric within the manosphere. They're still talking the same sort of 10 commandments, and they're not expanding their thought. They're not learning from anything. They're not developing their own language to sort of have different perspectives on those ideas. And it's the same thing. You're going out with the same chick with tattoos on her neck that gets drunk and gets into fights, but you know the language really well. You know it off by heart, and so it's easy. And you won't get hurt, really, in the most vulnerable ways, because that girl might hurt you in certain ways, but the real vulnerable part that you want to expose will never get hurt.
That's right. It's a protective bubble. And it took me a long time to realize that. I'm sure it was the same with you. And you look back and you kick yourself in the ass for not knowing things that should have been more obvious, even 10 years down the track. And it's what I found is, like we've talked about, being curious, but also more open to others, because most people can't see outside of their own experience. And it's a different kind of mindset when you're dealing with guys that have come from that sort of rough background. If you give them structure, if you give them instructions, if you give them guidance, they react positively to it because it's calming. It's an calming influence on them. So they've got boundaries and they respect that. But if I turned around to you and said tomorrow, okay, human, I said, okay, you're going to do this from now on with your work. You're going to do it this way. You'd feel I was imposing on you. Because it's like you said with the people that, are you conservative? Are you this, that, and the other thing? Because they feel like you're imposing a different perspective on them. So it's essentially messing with their religion.
Yes.
Because they live in a bubble. They're fed everything through repeat marketing. Anything outside that is just seen as a threat. It's instinctive.
I was thinking how even your very subjective way of seeing something that you value, like say, for instance, let's just kind of illustrate, say, with the kind of women you find attractive with tattoos on their neck. Say that's something very much that's you. That's this subjective thing you love, and it's only about you. It's my little private little bubble inside me. And I come along and say, well, you should actually like other kinds of women because they're healthier. And the natural reaction is, well, fuck you. This is my private thing that I love. Like, what else am I supposed to love? Like, you're going to ask me to manufacture loving something else? Like, yeah, it makes sense that this other kind of woman won't hurt me, but there's no passion there. And I want to feel passionate for a woman, and you're telling me to feel passionate about something that's not me?
Yeah, that's difficult. You've got to shed all those layers, which is it's a process in itself. But I mean, you need to fight to make things happen. And you need to get to the point where you can identify what you want and then care enough to fight for it. I mean, you could go out there and you can ask people what was the last book they read. They wouldn't be able to tell you. Books, what are those? I don't read books. I look at YouTube.
Or even audio books these days.
Yeah.
Most things are audio books, which is a passive way of listening to something. Because that's one thing, whether it's writing or reading, it's this concentrated, active way of really being focused on something. And the way that gets imprinted and embedded in your psyche. And then when you start to become the writer, or if you do, you can draw from those things because they've been tattooed into you. All this other passive stuff, audio books, video games, people just talking rubbish without any sort of refined language or knowing what they're talking about or what their values are, it kind of washes over you. It's all very surface level. It doesn't touch you. And the hard thing is, I think for most guys, they've got so much psychic pain today in the world, is that how do you make that psychic pain touch something and be tactile enough that where you can change it and start switching those levers. Because the longer you live your life in this passive absorption of, the musical chair of all these different mixed messages that are coming your way, and a man needs to stand on something for his own sake. He can't just be entertained with these passive messages coming towards him all the time.
Yeah, and it's different with the guys I work with, because I said in the video I've got leverage and pressure, which I do. I can do that. I know they're going to respond in that way. The average guy wouldn't, because he's got a safety net. So there's nothing for him to lose. That risk isn't there for him to get him motivated to make that change. And a lot of guys today are isolated. So, it's a relevant question. How do we reach them? For me, it was books. For me, it was literature. It was the same for you. Maybe it was music as well, that sort of thing. But I mean, one of my favorite authors was Franz Kafka. Metamorphosis is one of my favorite books. But he was of the opinion that you should only read books if they wound you or stab you or smash you across the head. Otherwise, why are you reading it? It should be like a death. It should be like going out to a wild forest somewhere, and it should be like a suicide. It should grieve you deeply. It's got to be a book must be the axe for the frozen sea within us. It's got to shatter it. Otherwise, why are you investing your time in it?
Yeah, it kind of makes me curious where people who do read, and, great, it's sort of very rare today. But some people just read in an entertainment sort of way, where you'll ask them, how was the book? Oh, it was good. What was it about? Oh, I forgot. It's kind of like with me, I want a book to knock me on my ass. At the very least, at least make it a bit interesting, or make the language and style the person sort of look like they have some skill, and he can sort of illustrate a moment and be able to describe, make you feel something, But a lot of people just want to be entertained. They don't want to be confronted with anything. Whereas I think whether it's movies or books, I'm looking for something that moves me. I was going to say, how do you approach a guy who's feeling a lot of guilt?
A lot of guilt?
Yes.
I'll tell him it's a useless emotion. It's completely pointless. I said, okay, look, if you want to make amends with that person, that's great. A lot of the guys I know that they do serious time and they've done serious crimes. And then they, I don't know, you work with them and they get to a point, okay, I've accepted religion. What I did was wrong. Do you know that? They come to this point, it's this overwhelming realization for them. They go, I did something wrong. I've got to make up for this. I've got to tell them I'm sorry. And it's like an autistic guy trying to ask out a girl and not getting the hint. They don't want you fucking sorry. And then he gets all angry about it. He comes back and he says, I tried. He said, they told me to fuck off. He's all teary about it. I said, what did you expect? And it's just a different mentality. You've got to take it step by step. If they want to make amends, okay, they may not accept your apology. You need to take that on board. So you've got to focus on yourself. You're still alive. So guilt is a completely wasted emotion, right? You've got to focus on taking those steps forward. You have value. You can help people. You can do the right thing. But I was walking through town. It was the other weekend. I was walking with this girl. It was late at night. And this guy, he had somebody scream my name. He comes bounding across the street, and he's a hardcore gang member, all the rest of it. He's all full of enthusiasm because he spies me. And this girl's just about to jump out of her skin. This guy's really intimidating looking. And we start talking, blah, blah, blah. And by the end of it, we walk away, and she said, wow, he was a really polite guy. I said, yeah. I said, do you know what he did? I tell her, and she stops dead in the street. She says, how can you associate with someone like that? I said, because he's adding value. He's working with all these young guys. He's a mentor. He's setting them straight. He's making an impact. He really is changing their lives. And I could list off a list of names of guys that he's gotten on the right path. And he's helped so many lives, and then the lives of their families and so on and so forth. And it's, you know what I mean? It can have an impact. But most people can't process that or see that or are willing to see that. Yeah. So they've got to get past that and just move on and look at those little steps to get them moving. They can make amends some other point, but guilt is pointless, really.
Yeah, look, I agree with you, but I'm sort of I find it interesting where if you're actually in the middle of that pain, that guilt-ridden pain, you can't help how you feel, and your mind's constantly feeling guilty and feeling pain for the past. And I know I've been there in the past as well. No matter how rational I was, it actually added to the pain as well, because I'm smarter than this. I recognize I'm being an idiot, but I can't help feeling all this pain, and this guilt or whatever it might be. That's a hard one because, again, you and I might have the benefit of language and literature. We can actually walk our way through it mentally, write it down, read it as a third person, almost mentor ourselves and be our own psychiatrist on the couch and be our own sort of person with our own ear. But the guy that doesn't have the language, who can't process it, all he feels is trauma and pain. That's just one of those things, I suppose. I can only say you just got to sit with it.
Well, I could say that in terms of how different cultures process things, because I do Systema, which is it's a martial art. It's what the special forces do, the Russian special forces.
Yep.
So I've associated with a lot of guys from Russian descent, and they come from a very orthodox background. So I've spent a lot of time in Eastern Europe as well with these guys, and it's something. The psychology of Systema, that philosophy, it's like if somebody grabs you, relax. If someone attacks you or your family, relax. Don't bring emotional content into it because it's going to happen. When you hit someone, remain human. And it's all these different things. It's how they look at things differently. They say it's people don't die from the impact or from their wounds. They die because they can't handle the psychological effect of the trauma. It all depends on whether you mentally give up. So for them, with Russians, what I found is the way that they process trauma and the way that they reflect on their past is completely different to the way we do in the West. They can remove themselves from it. They become separate. They're like a third person looking back on themselves, the way they do it. And it's the exact result that you're striving for with EMDR, like what veterans do, to get to the point where they can separate themselves from the pain and move through that process of re-experiencing the pain, but getting to the point where they can stand back and be a third party to it. But they can do that. That's just in their makeup.
Yeah.
It's a completely different psychology. It's fascinating to watch. No, but the thing is, it's what I always tell people. It's the most important person you have to answer to is yourself, and it's the same thing. It's, do you love the person in the mirror, or do you harbor resentment towards them? And we need to forgive ourselves as much as we forgive others. We've got to let go of all the anger, the regret, the shame. You just let go of it, and success is always going to be dictated by how well we know ourselves. What our attributes are, what our skills are, what's good about us.
Yeah.
So
and the language you use, it matters so much. Sometimes
definitely.
I think that guys don't appreciate, because I think it's very feminine. Because if you say something like, you have to let it go and live life in the moment, and it seems very ephemeral and abstract and very feminine. It's kind of like that. There's no handles on that statement for me to hold on to. I need to hold on to and feel something as a man. I'm a practical person. What's all this live life in the moment bullshit? I want to slap you. I'm in pain. It's almost condescending.
Yeah.
The person needs a certain message and certain medicine at a certain time, and then later on, they can deal with something else. So those more philosophical, existential questions, they come later. Like, that's not going to mean something to a guy going through red pill rage or pain, or his wife has just sort of stripped his kids away from him. Like, he doesn't care about Immanuel Kant or Nietzsche or anything like that. He probably wants to take a. For you to read. Yeah. He's like, I got a baseball bat for you to feel. But I remember in terms of pain, I remember coming across a quote. It goes, "There is nothing that can take the pain away, but eventually you will find a way to live with it. There will be nightmares, and every day when you wake up, it will be the first thing you think of, until one day it'll be the second."
Yeah. I knew a guy, he lost his arm. He was in an accident. Every morning, that sleep state where you wake up and you have dirty thoughts, and it's just before you wake up and you realize you're conscious. Well, every day that he wakes up, it'll be, okay, I've got both arms. Then he wakes up and he realizes, I'm only got one arm. And it took him a long time to get to that point where he's okay with it. So there was a lot of grieving there. All he had was people slapping on the back. "Oh, you're alive, man. You should be so happy about it. Oh, that's fantastic." Nobody acknowledged the arm. No one. He was all left to himself to grieve over this thing. So it took a long time for him to get to that point. He says, "You know what? Yeah, it is an arm. It was my arm. It was special to me. But, there's more to me than this arm." And it was that epiphany that he had later on. And it was after he took steps to, I guess, increase his career prospects. He got into a good relationship. He built his friend network and all the rest of it. And he got himself out of that dark corner. He cut himself off from the world for a period of time and then got back out there and started, okay, yeah, this is me. I remember myself now. This is who I used to be. But, that's why I always put out there, networks are vital for young men. The question, if you were homeless tomorrow, if something happened, you had an accident, you weren't covered, you lost everything, lost your house, lost all your possessions, you're out in the street, there you go. Okay, who would you turn to? Who could you turn to? It's the thing, who could I call up and spend a night on the couch or a month or what have you? Failing that, can I set up a tent in your backyard? And the amount of guys I know, they have no one.
Yeah.
They come out of a divorce. They got that look in their eyes, the same lost look. They've been lied to and all the rest of it, but it's directly after that. It's before the anger sets in. It's like they've been hit by a truck. They can't believe it. They've got no contacts, no networks. They forced all their friends out of their sphere. They have no one, nothing. The wife takes them for everything.
Yeah. It's scary. And I think a lot of men you can sort of see even before that happens. There's a nervousness in their language when you talk to them.
Self-censorship, yeah.
Yeah, they're not in good jobs. They're not in good routines. They don't take care of their health. They're always tired. They're estranged from their wife. They're basically like passing strangers in their own home. They don't sleep together. They're in separate rooms. They're going through the motions of, picking up Timmy from soccer practice and taking Jenny to swimming. And it's just all kind of, I'm going through the motions. I'm pantomiming, what should have been a good life, but at least I've got this, because beyond this is nothing. There's just the grave and the gutter. At least I've got this. And it's just like, I feel so sorry for some of those guys.
You sound like Charles Bukowski when he says most people's deaths are a sham. He said there's nothing left to die.
Yeah.
You have to die a few times before you can really live.
Yeah, that's why I love picking up any one of his books. There's always something in it. They're timeless, those things.
Yeah. But the thing, it's like sometimes guys, they have to press control or delete on their life to progress, and it's a scary prospect. But, it's like I said in the video, you have to walk in the dark. You have to trust yourself, close your eyes and go with it. And sometimes it's the only thing you can do. But it's very difficult for men to understand their value, understand who they are, what they are. They're lost. We've cut them off. We've failed them. There's you see a lot of manosphere videos, and a lot of them talk about women, which there's nothing wrong with that, but your videos are different. How we're having this conversation is different to a lot of that content. We're talking in terms of where we find the value within that dynamic, and how we gauge what we don't want, what we do want. I think that's lacking. I don't see that in any other content. Is that dialogue happening?
Not that much, I don't think.
What's that Warren Farrell said? He said, I said, women can't hear what men don't say. And he had this sort of image of a guy sitting at somebody's wedding, whatever, and nobody's talking to him. He's the father, and he's just invisible. It makes sense. I think a lot of people today, they forget how to think for themselves. They just let others think for them. And the thing is that life can only be understood backwards. It can only be understood backwards, but it has to be lived forwards. That's the only way we can progress. But I was going to say, I think the first sort of awakening for me, videos was man, woman, myth. And the sort of light bulb moment for me was watching Sharon Osbourne. You must have seen that clip where she was talking about the wife who cut her husband.
Yeah. That was a meme for about a year.
Yeah. That one slapped me right across the head. And before that, I was looking for content sort of related to, things I was thinking about when it comes to marriage and relationships and that sort of thing. But after that, I found Barbarossa and Stardust and all the rest of it. But yeah, you're right. It was always about looking forward. And they all had their different personalities. I remember finding Stardust. I used to call him Diogenes. I never said it to him, but
well, now he knows.
Yeah, well, now he knows if he's listened this far. But Diogenes was a Greek philosopher. He's one of the founding fathers of the school of cynicism. He was mad as a hatter. He he lived in a barrel in the marketplace. He dressed like a peasant and he ran around the marketplace just scolding people, and he'd urinate in the marketplace and he'd eat in the marketplace. You weren't allowed to do that. That was taboo. And he was a thorn in the side to Socrates, even though I probably liked him. But Socrates talked about how a man he's like a naked fowl, whatever it is. And Diogenes came in with a plucked chicken, held it up in the middle of us and the emporium, and he said, "Behold, I brought you a man." But, that's kind of how I felt with his work. Things like that woke me up. It was a completely different way of looking at society. And the way that I looked at Barbarossa, Stardust, all of these content makers was like Diogenes. They were rebelling against the absurdity and the insanity around them. I was like, what they're saying is clear and crystal and can't be refuted, and it is true. Yeah, you're right. The world is insane, not them.
Yeah,
I have been thinking right. I have been right.
Finally some nutrition and not all this junk food.
Yeah, exactly. And you find out that you, not only were you right, but it gives you some sense that, it's a sense of understanding that I never had before.
Yeah, and you can, I know for me as well, when I discovered a lot of you guys, it was kind of like, yes, like guys that speak my language. And then it's kind of like, then you can take your own step forward, and with your own steps, you have your own language that you bring forward, and you throw something into the ring, and it sort of bounces between us all, and we sort of expand horizontally on this language, and we sort of, in this way, it's not an accident. Like a person you discover all of a sudden who's speaking more and more of your language starts to impart more and more things that just, fit into all these pigeonholes that were once empty in your life. It's like, finally, the kind of quasi-father figure that sort of could teach me little things that fit into my slots. It's a really good thing.
And it was based on experience. All of them, they used to translate a lot of their experiences into their work, what they'd talk about. I did that. A lot of the guys didn't. I can, as men, we have to be open. We have to be curious. It keeps us creative. It keeps us empowered and focused. And, creativity, unfortunately, is often mutually exclusive from profitability, but, that's fine. But I think a lot of that often stops people from engaging in it. And that's a shame, because success is subjective. I mean, you define it yourself. But, you can read comments from guys saying, I don't want to make videos because, the other content is so good. But what do I have to add? Your experience, your life, your perspective, start putting words together. Once you put words together, you develop, you understand yourself better, you understand your environment, blah, blah, blah. The people, bounce off that and give you insight. You give other people insight. It becomes mutually beneficial. That's how it works.
Yeah. And like I think I've mentioned this a few times before, like you can talk about the same thing over and over again. Like in terms of I'll talk about a very specific topic in my way with my words and string them together with whatever concatenation of words and sentences that sort of make up the whole picture. And you could do the same topic in your own way, and Stardust and everyone else could do. And all of them might not resonate and click with the guy except for one. And that's all you need. The person's voice, the person's lexicon, the way they speak, connects with a particular guy's life experience and the language he's used to, So those things matter. So it's not, this person has talked about certain points and he's hit them. It's not about the objective points that were discussed. It's how. The how is like the overwhelming importance of everything. Like what is real doesn't matter two shits, really, at the end of the day. The way it's internalized is the how, is the why, like how you internalize it. Like, women have this nature. Great. How does it help me? It's how and why I understand it through my language. Then it actually clicks. Then when I converse and relate to people in real life, then that dance happens. But there's no dancing with a very mechanical, unfeeling kind of mathematical what. It's like, 80% of women will leave you in a divorce. Okay, great. Let me just lock myself up in the room. There's no why and how and introspection. Like the why is so important.
Yeah. Yeah. What did Norman Mailer said? He said, writing is the closest men will ever come to childbirth.
Yeah.
It is. It's like taking a gigantic shit and then feeling that relief afterward. Okay, whatever. Yeah, but I mean, like everything, like boxing, martial arts, what I found through martial arts with Systema is, the more you discover yourself, the more tension you find in the body. And, there's different exercises we do even before we start. We line each other up, we pair up, and we use closed fists against the body. Not trying to cause damage, but it's something that it brings you out of yourself, but brings you back into yourself. So you're aware of your body. It's like I say to people, how often have you walked around outside with shoes off in the grass, in the sand? How often do you experience nature? How often do you allow yourself to let that tension leave your body and bring the emotional content out of it and actually just be? Not many people do. Men today, they become incredibly emotional just at the drop of a hat. That's a female thing. Men need to, because there's risks for men that do that.
Yep.
The risks aren't present for women. They are for men. Men can't make those kind of mistakes. Take the emotional content out of it. Come at it from very calm, very logical perspective. It's going to benefit you. When it comes to forgiveness, I always say that you've got to understand the other person's perspective. You understand why they did what they did. By doing that, you can understand where their perspective, but it can also lessen things for you. It's
they don't understand that once you do that, then you'll understand the value of forgiveness. It's actually for you. It's not. It's not. Not you're being completely kind to them and not thinking of yourself. Is in finding that understanding from their point of view, you'll be able to make sense of it maybe, and then the end result of tying that knot up is it's beneficial to you.
Yeah, and understanding, you understand the human condition, why they hurt you, why they did it, where it came from. So you can forgive that.
Yeah.
You can forgive that. That's fine. So you can let go of that resentment and that hate. So, I mean, if you look at things, if there was no hope, people wouldn't experience depression. There's no despondency without hope. I run into a lot of people all the time from background and, they open up to me, but, there's real sadness in their eyes when I see them. They got stuck. And they want to be around me and they want to share with me all their life and their pain and the rest of it. And, they can see, and I know they can see because I'm reading on the face, they can see that there's a way out. But they're locked into it, they're stuck, and it's all these things that drag them down.
Yeah.
You got to have an awareness of yourself and appreciate your value and all the rest of it. I don't think men do. Men don't appreciate their own value. They don't see any value in themselves, nor the incentive.
You need to, again, put handles on them in some way, because sometimes if you just say find value in life, it's very abstract. And in some ways it's just as simple as telling a man, okay, is there anything you value in life? Do you have a hobby or a pastime or a thing you like? And then, they can maybe point to one thing. For instance, I know with me, like I really value the ability to express myself on paper, whether that's art, illustration, writing, or whatever. And I defend that like anything. I've actually broken up in relationships because of it, because I was made to choose. It's either this or me, and I chose that quite rationally. It's kind of like, okay, so take that thing that you really love and you would defend, that's yours, that you really treasure and value, like your favorite hobby or your favorite car or your best friend or your sport that you're into or your football team or something. It could be stupid, but if you really love that thing and you would defend it and argue to fight for it, try doing that with other things that really should be more important, like your intimate relationships, friends, families, girlfriends, whatever.
Yeah, definitely.
Because those are the things that, let's be honest, a lot of guys who are really intelligent, their intelligence becomes like a light switch, and it's like they just become like a moron when it comes to relationships, especially with the opposite sex, or being taken advantage of. And it could be upbringing or whatever, but try and do that with other things that are important, because I'm sure most guys are tired of getting kicked in the balls when it comes to those intimate parts of their world, because sometimes they're worse. You know, like you get kicked in the heart. That's a lot harder than, like you said, copping a punch to the face.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah, I mean, you get some of these guys, like the young guys I work with, and, they'll kick off against one another. Okay, I'm going to have this guy. Well, it's like, oh, put on gloves. Come on, get in the ring. Off you go. No rounds. Off you go. You know, but a minute into it, they're both looking at me. They got their hands on their knees. Come on, boss. I said, you wanted to fight. You know, you're all gassed out now. Come on, go. And by the end of it, they'll be fine. You know, they go, okay, well, they never kick off again against each other. They'll start to work with each other. But it's, nobody got hurt. You put them in there. It's okay. You boys got to work on your conditioning. You have a laugh about it. You move on. But it's kind of a different dynamic. You know, a lot of guys miss out on that. So I guess one regret I had or have is that I haven't worked with guys from other walks of life. I went again with what was familiar with me, and I know what works for these guys. So I can get these guys lined up with all kinds of services and all the rest of, get them into trades, get them vocations. I've got all these contacts, blah, blah, blah. I can get them all, right down the line. I can get these guys taken care of. All I need from them is a level of accountability. They agree to that, they're fine. Off they go. I can do that for those guys. I don't have the experience nor the language, I think, to actually motivate or reach a number of men today. Like I say, that guy staring into the camera, hitting himself. How do you reach him? I don't know. There's so much information out there. They're lost in the shuffle, lost in the matrix. That's another matrix in and of itself. We say escape the matrix. Did we? Did they? Did they really? It doesn't look like it. I'm not plugged in. I walk around with a brick. I'm never online because it doesn't hold my attention. I'd rather read a book. It's just the way I am. I'm different, but they're fully into it, man. They're lost in this void.
And I think that sometimes they have a false sense of confidence because they literally think it's an electronic plugged in. Because, okay, I can just not look at my phone, or I can just not look at porn. So I know when I can unplug. I'm in full control of this. But it's imbued in the way you operate and the way you think all the time.
Yeah.
Because if they're not plugged in and to their phones or their social interactions for a lot of guys now are completely online. I think a lot of guys now, they live online and they do the basics of going to the bathroom and eating and sleeping and so forth, but they don't really, they exist at school or at jobs like zombies, but they only truly try and live in the safety of online.
Yeah.
It's a very weird thing. And again, say your message or my message, it's hard to get through to that kind of mental makeup.
Yeah.
What kind of, our language might just come off as theatrical and sort of, like I and John kind of stuff. Like that really doesn't connect with their experience at all. And I can understand that. Sometimes I talk to sort of young guys and I know they're not getting me. They might find what I say interesting, but I don't think it's as meaningful as it is maybe, I don't know. There's not sort of that resonated beauty where it kind of like hits you, like you said, it hits you like a spear. Like, oh, now things make sense. Oh, now this language, this speaks to me. Yes. It's like, no, my experience is online, being anesthetized. Your language is kind of like, I don't know what you'd call it. Listening to a really cool song and then you move on to the next thing. Oh, that was a cool song. It's like, oh, that video from Spetsnaz, that was really cool. It doesn't really internalize. It's not going to really hit you like religion. Whereas with us, we were looking for something to replace the religion of old. How do you change a guy these days? In a beneficial way? Well, they feel like they're saved. They feel like they're safe. Yeah. They're not wanting to get free from what? I'm safe in my velvet cage. You want me to go out into the world for what? Whereas with us, we were in cages that felt prickly. We were claustrophobic. We were again post Matrix. We were wanting, like, we wanted to breathe. We wanted out of that cage. These guys just want to be left alone. It's like, no, can you shut the cage door? Just leave me alone. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I don't know, man. All I know is the guys that I worked with is, it's a simple case of the way I look at it. It's easier to build strong children than to repair broken men.
Mm.
And you look at at-risk boys become at-risk men. So it's very clear cut with that kind of dynamic. So the boy you beat on today won't be the same man tomorrow.
Sure. It's almost like limbs getting amputated later on. Those limbs are forever gone. Sometimes you can't recover them.
No. And I see these guys get tuned up through the prison system, all the rest of it, and it's like, yeah, what can you do? They get sucked into that life and they believe the bullshit. And it's the same thing. No, mate, I'm fine. Okay. They come out and, they've done 20 years. Come out, you're still fine? Oh, fuck, what a waste. I could have had a family. All the fucking people here, I want to say sorry and they don't want to talk to me. So it's all this regret and shame and
Well, I even realise that when I look at, say, even the vocation or job that you choose, most people are still in jobs that the 18-year-old version of themselves chose for them.
Yeah.
It's ridiculous to think that, like, you're going to be the same person or, like, MGTOW for life. It's like, man, Jesus Christ. But look, one thing I think is, you mentioned before, like, how many people are producing this kind of content? It's not just producing content, like, how many people are actually speaking about worthwhile things? That's the thing. That they produce content is another thing entirely, but I think there's a real need for it. So I think, like, I was just listening to your last video. Not only do I think that, like, a lot of guys will, like, really be grateful that you're just starting to talk and starting to just be an elder mentoring voice that they can listen to. And while listening to you, they can start developing their own language. Like, if they start unconsciously listening to the lexicon of you, me, Stardust, and there's more and more people, can you imagine more and more of that language starting to come out of the mouths of guys who never had a language of their own? I think that's a great thing. And because especially today, all you've got is a female language which men don't know how to speak. And when we try, we come off like idiots and it doesn't work for us. We feel embarrassed trying to mimic what women want us to say. It's not our language, so we need our own language. So I actually think there's a great need for more people to produce content, to talk, and to sort of stoically sort of talk to each other because there's a big lack of it out there.
And it's also men playing a very female game. They're putting themselves online, trying to find love that way. And like you say, they don't have the language, and it's not going to work that way. And these guys, they're playing this game of social media where they feel like they're less than and playing the comparison game and all the rest of it, getting fed. It comes through their feeds that their life is worthless and they're worthless because they don't reach a certain attractiveness level. I can't think of anything more feminine. And it's, the way I've met women has always been through social networks, and the amount of work I've had to do on myself. It's lucky I didn't go to prison. I was lucky. I lucked out. But all the work I've done since then to get to the point where I can converse with people, I can be around people, like, I can appreciate what they're offering me, appreciate other people. I don't have to agree with them. I don't even have to accept them. I can tolerate them.
Yeah, and now luck has very little to do with it compared to the luck that you sort of got away with previously. That's the thing, like the bullets you miss, the little risks you take, and you can sort of move on and learn from those. Later and later in life, luck has little to do with it.
Yeah. I mean, I never committed a crime, but, thank God I didn't. I'd fallen with the wrong crowd and it could have gone that way. But, I don't know, man. The boys today are really lost. And I made that video the other night. I said, fuck it, I'm just going to do it. I just did it off the cuff.
Yeah, it was great. It was great, man. And
I was inspired by your work as well. It's the way you approach your work. You do. You talk straight from the heart and all the rest of it. I said, you know what? He's talking in very simple, straightforward terms. I think more men need to do it that way.
Well, I noticed that's not just that was what was lacking. I think we mentioned it last time. I'd watch other YouTube videos of people just vlogging about their everyday life. And they weren't talking about red pill content. They were just being really real about, this happened and I'm just going through a hard time with this. And there's just this basic one-on-one, like I'm sitting down with another guy and I go, that's the thing to do. And a lot of guys, they're falsely trying to sort of latch on to, MGTOW as a group and what group can I belong, because there's no individual aspect for me to calibrate myself towards. Well, here's one, the individual of one man listening to another. Like as though you're in a conversation, like yours off the cuff, just, shooting the breeze, talking about things that are on your mind. Someone else does the same thing. We have conversations like this, So I think being more conversational, scripted is one thing when it's it's an important point that you want to get right and you want to make sure you don't leave anything out. I get it. But sometimes I notice that if I can just have one important idea, it's one word or one sentence, and I just start talking about it, if it lasts for 5 minutes or 10 minutes, that kind of video can stick. And then people can remember those videos because they were about a certain idea that might be the thing that's missing in their brain. It's kind of like, I never thought that's something I struggle with, but Human talked about that thing. Now I kind of get it, rather than, what video was it in? He did a 3-hour video. Was it in that one? Or it's like, I can't be bothered listening to it.
Yeah, 3 hours would probably be a bit much. You're good. You're not that good. Come on.
Yeah. Well, if it's a technical video, I understand, but mine are sort of very conversational. And I think the important parts of a conversation, which is a lot of, say, what you and I do, is there's certain nuggets of truth. And sometimes a guy might watch one of your videos or mine, and if they're longer, they might be interesting, but one really hits home because it's something they struggled with or never had an answer with. And those are the kind of conversational things. And sometimes I wish, if you just did a whole video on that, that would really help me. So, thanks again. We'll do it again anytime you want, man.
Yeah, man. Cool.
Feel free to like, subscribe, and share my work on social media, comment under this content, or join the conversation on Discord. If you'd like to support me directly, there are donation options below. I appreciate all of you who have and continue to. It's people like you that make all the difference. Thanks.